Good evening, ladies. Are you of the opinion that crypto is only an avenue for speculation, gambling, and meme coins, and it's all just a nihilistic and completely useless technology that we're all just playing hot potato with? If that's what you're thinking, if that's what you think of crypto, this probably isn't going to be the video for you. However, if you're of the opinion that crypto is going to add a huge amount of value to society worldwide, then one of the main use cases, one of the niches that has started to make a resurgence in terms of narrative and in terms of price action is DeFi. One of the oldest narratives, one of the oldest, well, not really that old, only a few years old, but still one of the first killer use cases, first killer apps of crypto was, of course, DeFi. And DeFi is coming back in a major way. We can see Aave and Maker, particularly Maker, has really started to come back in a big way. The price action has shown that, actually. Nevertheless, we can see Aave is looking like what Maker used to look like, and everyone's looking at Ethereum DeFi. So stuff like Aave, Maker, Uniswap, everyone's looking at those protocols. And what do you think I'm going to be looking at as opposed to ETH DeFi? Of course, we're going to be having a look at Solana DeFi, because when you actually dig into the numbers, if ETH DeFi, even on traditional finance metrics like PE ratios, is extremely cheap for the amount of cash flows, like actual cash flows, actual revenues, like fundamentally cheap in crypto, which is just insane to think about. Actually, DeFi is entering that realm because no one cares about DeFi anymore. No one's looking at DeFi. So that obviously could present a massive opportunity. So the Ethereum DeFi is really cheap on a fundamental basis. But when you look at the Solana DeFi, potentially it's even cheaper, because we've seen how much use and utility, we've seen how much usage Solana DeFi has been getting over the last few months, and the price action for some of these apps and some of these protocols hasn't really caught up to the usage just yet. We'll be doing a deep dive into two main protocols, two of the most interesting. Like, there's plenty other DeFi protocols on Solana, but we're going to be talking about Raydium and Camino in this video. So let's start with Raydium, no particular order, but Raydium, of course, is the biggest DEX on Solana. Now, you might think, oh, actually, Jupiter's bigger. I always use Jupiter. Everyone always uses Jupiter. Well, if you didn't know, Jupiter is an aggregator of all the various DEXs. So I think there's Orca, there's Jupiter, and there's Meteora, the main DEXs. There's a few others, and Jupiter just finds which one has the best liquidity and which one you're going to get the best rate, and does the transaction for you. So it actually does the transaction on the three different chains, or on the three different DEXs, and only allows the one that's the best for you to go through. So that's why most people use Jupiter. But most of those trades are actually funneling through Raydium. And Raydium, on a fundamental basis, has a token buyback, so we'll get into that. So there's actually fundamental reasons why the Raydium token itself has value. And we can have a look at as we can see, the market share of Raydium is 50%. Now, this graph is a little bit old, but as you can see, the market share at this point is 50% and rising. So it's actually growing. So the amount of activity on Solana is, of course, growing because of meme coins. More activity. There's been more and more activity over the course of the last year, like an explosion of activity, an explosion of volume. And the revenues and the volumes that we see on Solana are now rivaling Ethereum itself. So we're looking at the biggest DEX here, and the activity on Solana is growing, and the market share of the biggest DEX is also growing. So that's potentially, like, we've got growth on steroids here potentially. So that's the first point we're going to have a look into. The other point we can look at is not only is Solana's market share growing, but DEX volume in comparison to SEX volume is also increasing. So more people are actually using on-chain products than the likes of Binance. So we're not just competing with Uniswap, and if we're talking about Raydium here, we're not just competing with Uniswap, which is the most obvious competitor. And don't worry, we will compare the market caps and the volumes and the TVL to Uniswap, but we're actually really competing with the likes of Binance. And one of the closest use cases, one of the main things we can look forward to in the short term is DEXs. It's already a proven use cases, the centralized exchanges, whether it's perps exchanges or just straight up normal DEXs. There's no reason why that needs to be in a centralized exchange. We've already have better products that are better in some ways and going to continue to improve. We just need to get more people on chain using decentralized exchanges. So here's a chart of Raydium over the last year. And as you can see, obviously since January, when things started going absolutely crazy in 2024 for Solana, we can see Raydium had a really big comeback. And, you know, in comparison to Uniswap here, Uniswap is kind of still chilling, hasn't really exploded just yet. Now, it did have a big pump when we can see that big pump. That was when they hinted that they were going to turn on a fee switch, and then they got sued by the SEC, so there was a following dump. But nevertheless, we can see Raydium's fully diluted market cap is $1 billion and Uniswap's is $7 billion. But Raydium is only, the circulating supply is only 50%, so the actual market cap is 450 million, and that's not all set to release in the very short term. So from a circulating market cap, Uniswap is almost fully diluted, so it's 14 times bigger than Raydium, or 7 times bigger if you want to go on fully diluted valuation metrics. On a TVL basis, we can see Uniswap is 5 times larger than Raydium in TVL, and Raydium is actually 1/3 the volume of Uniswap, which is pretty impressive. Remember, we said it's 1/7 the fully diluted valuation and 1/14 the circulating valuation. So, you know, there is potential upside on a fundamental basis. They should be the same figures. Not an unbelievable amount of upside, but definitely room to grow into that valuation a bit. If we imagine that Uniswap is fairly valued, then Raydium would then be undervalued if we're looking at volume metrics and TVL metrics. And then you realize that Raydium, unlike Uniswap, actually has a token buyback. So 12% of the fees that you pay to use a Raydium DEX actually goes back to buy the token back, which is, you know, actual fundamental value being created to hold the token. Unlike with Uniswap, which is like basically just a governance token, which is completely useless to most people. This actually has a fundamental reason to own it in the form of the buybacks. Might be thinking to yourself, yeah, but Raydium's, like, all of this volume is coming from meme coins, and that is definitely a fair criticism. And if you're not bullish on meme coins over the next year, on Solana meme coins in particular, then of course all of this volume, all of this TVL is, you know, somewhat transitory and isn't going to stay around. However, and to add to that, actually, if you didn't know, Pump Fun, so where everyone makes the meme coins now, once that hits 69k market cap, it's seeded onto Raydium. So that's why one of the reasons Raydium has been gaining market share, more and more market share, was actually probably thanks to Pump Fun quite a lot. So being the biggest DEX means that there's going to be more liquidity, and more liquidity means that that's where people are going to most likely put the majority of their liquidity onto the DEX that has the most liquidity in the first place. So it's kind of a winner takes most or winner takes all market when it comes to DEXs on a particular chain. And obviously Raydium's winning the race for now. Now, like I said, 92% of the volume on Raydium right now is meme coins, and you might not think that is sustainable whatsoever. However, on this channel, we're not just bullish on meme coins, particularly in the Solana ecosystem. There's a lot of things to be bullish on in the Solana ecosystem. Some major examples would include the DePIN ecosystem, which is I'd say 50% of the best DePIN projects, or probably more, are built on Solana. To add to that, stablecoin volumes on Solana are exploding, and I think this trend will massively continue. Like, obviously not obviously, but if you didn't know, most of the stablecoin volume is actually on Tron at the moment. But I think there's a good chance over time a lot of that will shift over to Solana. Like, a lot of people in third world countries are using Tron, and potentially the switching costs, once they realize they can do it fast, like basically instantaneously and basically free on Solana, maybe they will start incorporating and getting Solana wallets, and Solana probably a bit more trusted and a bit more safe than Tron. And even PayPal has created their stablecoin on Solana. So here's a few charts within one chart in regards to Raydium. So we'll first look at the volume chart, which is the blue bar chart. And as you can see, the volume absolutely exploded in January from basically zero, and March went absolutely crazy. And has remained pretty consistent over that time, but the amount of unique active wallets and the amount of transactions has continually been increasing for the entire year. Now, a lot of these could be bots, but bots are still users and bots still pay fees. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a bot or a real user at the end of the day. A bot is indistinguishable from a real human pressing a button. It doesn't matter if it's a bot pressing a button or if it's a human pressing a button. It's the same thing happening at the end of the day. It's actually a human who has designed the bot to do whatever it's doing. So people are like, oh, Solana is just mostly used by bots. Yeah, but who's controlling those bots? Who's setting those bots up? It's not bots setting them up. So it's still usage. It's still paying transaction fees to Raydium and Solana, actually. So to summarize, if you're bullish on Solana and if you're bullish on meme coins being the main playground still being on Solana for this cycle, if you're bullish on meme coins still being a trend, Raydium's going to perform very well. If you're bullish on DPIN, which I'm very bullish on DPIN, a lot of that trading activity is going to be going through Raydium as well. And if you're bullish on new Solana apps that will come out in the next few months or other Solana applications that have a token and you're bullish on the entire Solana ecosystem, and you're looking at Raydium, and I think there is a very, very big shift to fundamental analysis investing in crypto right now. I think there is, people are getting a bit tired of the nihilism and everything, so they are starting to look at fundamental metrics again. And on fundamental metrics, Raydium is definitely one to keep an eye out for. But there is another one to definitely keep an eye out for, which also has very, very strong fundamental reasons to potentially invest in, and that of course is Camino. And I think I'm going to divide this video into two and do that in a part 2 video, which I'll link right here for you to watch. So enjoy. Thanks for watching. Bye.